Today I am bringing you my May wrap-up. Technically, the first book I read in May I put at the end of my April wrap-up, which was A Dance with Dragons. But since then I have managed to read 8 books. 8 books and then some partial books. And I'll talk about some of the partial books first. The first one was on my phone, and that was The Novice, part of the Summoner series by Taran Matheru. And I'm at 19% through this book. And I'm not sure how much my desire is to push through and finish it. So far, the story feels a bit generic. The plot points aren't the most exciting. So I'm kind of just picking that up as and when I want to. Don't know whether I'm actually going to finish it, but I hopefully will one day. The other book I've read partially, which is the book that I actually just DNF'd this morning, which was the first 15 Lives of Harry August. And while the writing is great, the story is one of the strangest things I've ever read, and I can't keep track of it. It doesn't make sense. The plot isn't actually developing because it jumps back and forward so much, and just so little seems to be happening, and I can't deal with it anymore. I'm at page 181. Which is almost halfway, but I can't push myself to read another 240 pages of Harry August's life, because his life doesn't make sense, and it just jumps around, and it's just very frustrating. When you think you're going to get to anything remotely interesting, it then jumps back to like his 6th life when you're currently in his 12th, and I'm just not enjoying that. So that's that one. I know a lot of people did enjoy it, it just wasn't for me. I might try and pick it up another day. We'll see. Moving on to the book that I actually did finish. The first one that I read was The Demigod Diaries by Rick Riordan. This is a bunch of companion stories to the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. And it was really fun. It was really fun. This was like just what I needed after A Dance with Dragons. It was a light pick-me-up that had all my favourite characters in it, really. But you saw from like Luke's eyes, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I gave the whole thing technically 4 stars, but the Diary of Luke Castellan I gave 4 stars. Percy Jackson and the Stuff of Hermes I gave 4 stars. I think it's Leo Valdez and the Quest for Buford I gave 3.5 stars. And then Son of Magic, which is the last book, which is actually written by Hallie Riordan, which is Rick's son, and I gave that 5 stars because it was so good. And that means overall I gave it 82.5%. That's not too bad. I did thoroughly enjoy it. It was just what I needed, so yes. Next, I picked up Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig, which is a memoir about Matt Haig's dealings with depression and anxiety. And this book was wonderful. If you have any misconceptions or things you aren't sure about with depression and mental health kind of things, read this book, because it's such a realistic view, I feel. It's such a honest view, because obviously it's his story, and it deals with how he dealt with it, and it was wonderful. 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, actually, it was wonderful, but also very upsetting, because it's a book about depression, and you see him at some of the really tough points in his life, and it was really heartfelt, and just read this book, guys. After this, I picked up, I don't have it, and this was Life Expectancy by Dean Koontz. And this was a book that I borrowed from my friend Jace, and basically it deals with this boy. Well, he's a boy at the beginning, and he's told when he's born that he will have 5 bad days in his life. And it deals with those 5 bad days and what happens over the course of his life. And it is such a wonderful, thrilling book. It's a thriller kind of book, I feel. And just the main character was so engaging, and his love life was really interesting. And just how he dealt with the 5 days and what the 5 days were and how they became such bad days in his life was really fascinating, up until like the last 50 or so pages, where it took a really strange turn that I didn't like. So for the first, it's like quite a big book, it's like 400 or so pages. The first 300 pages were excellent, thrilling, on your edge of your seat the whole time. The last 100 pages were alright. Talking about the last 50 or so, not a fan. I gave it 4.5, 4.25 out of 5 because the beginning was just so good. But the ending was a bit flat. But I did really enjoy it. That's the main thing, right? After that, I picked up Department 19 by Will Hill. This deals with a boy whose father has been killed by these men in black coats and he doesn't know who they are. It's just him and his mum. Then his mum gets kidnapped and he ends up going with the men in the black clothes, which are the workers of Department 19, a supernatural law enforcement agency who fight the vampires. And this was such a cool read. Yeah, I mean, it does get a little slow at the beginning, but such a lot of world building, so you kind of forgive it. But, oh my god, it was so fun. Jamie, the main character, has it really tough. He does really well. And then you have Larissa, who is a really cool character. Just saying. And just, yeah, it's kind of like a gory, horror-y crime novel. It's a really weird mix of stuff, but it works. It really works. So he tries to, basically, Jamie tries to recover his mum, and that is why this book is just so good. It's driven by that, and it's really cute, and then there's the twist at the end that made me just, I was sitting there going, no, 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 no. It was amazing. I gave it 4 stars though, because the beginning was a little bit slower, but I could have easily given it a 4.5 stars. It was so good. I really, really, really enjoyed it. After finishing Department 19, I started the sequel, but in between them I actually finished Young Avengers Volume 1 Sidekicks, which is a Marvel comic bind-up, which is after the events of a storyline called Avengers Disassembled, which I haven't read, but I can guess by the title what happens at the end. The Avengers are disassembled, and this deals with a bunch of kids, teens, who have superpowers or are just really cool, and they pick up the slack basically, and this is just a really cool one. It was really fun. The art was lovely. Just look at it. It's just so beautiful. And it dealt with the future. It had a time travel-y kind of aspect, and it was just really fun. I gave it 5 stars. My first kind of graphic novel / comic book that I've ever read properly, and this was just a great introduction. The characters are all brand new to me. I didn't need to read a lot before because this is volume 1, so it was great. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yes, loved it. Then I did eventually finish Department 19 The Rising by Will Hill, and this one was tougher to get through, but that's possibly because it's a 700-page book. And so much happens in this one. It picks up straight up after that one. You've got so many storylines that are woven throughout, and that's possibly where I struggled, is that one of the storylines I wasn't that interested in. But, oh my god, it was just shock twist after shock twist, and the character relationships in this book are just on point. I mean, Kate's relationship with, spoiler, is just great. Larissa and Jamie, which is kind of a spoiler, but Larissa and Jamie's relationship really took a huge leaps and bounds in this book, and it deals with so much more than the first one did, and this series is just excellent. They're counting down to 0 hour, and I'm so excited to pick up the next book. I'm going to pick it up because I need to see where this series ends. Just, wow. I gave this one 4.5 stars without a question, despite some of the slower bits. 4.5 stars. Loved it, loved it, loved it. After this, I picked up Young Avengers Volume 2, Family Matters. This book, man, just made me giggle. It's got some really strange storylines, but it was fun and really fun with it. It has just a host of interesting points of them dealing with their parents finding out about their superpowers. It deals with the Kree and Skrull War, which is a huge storyline in the Marvel Universe, apparently. I haven't read any more, but it deals with a kind of fight with that. But the Young Avengers are just awesome. The characters are great, and just, wow. I mean, Patriot, who is this guy, He literally is basically addicted to drugs, and it was dealt with so interestingly. And then you have like Wiccan and Hulkling, who are boyfriends, and it's just like this big kind of joke in the thing where they haven't told anyone apart from their friends. It's really funny. That storyline made me laugh. And you've got like Kate, who's just a badass. She is like one of my favourites. She is great. And then you have Cassie up here. And they're just great. And then you get the introduction of someone who is a spoiler. But yeah, it was so good. So good. Loved it. I want to pick up the omnibus for volume 2. These are technically the first volume. So I want to pick up like the next one. But I don't have the money for that yet. But when I do, I will be picking it up because the Young Avengers are just awesome and I loved them. And the last book I read in May is possibly my favourite book I read in May. And that was End of Days by Susan E. This is the final book in the Penguin End of Days series. Also, mostly people just call it the Angel Fall series. But Angel Fall is basically angels have come down to wreak the apocalypse on Earth. And this is the conclusion to that trilogy, and it was excellent. I was like almost at the end, and I was wondering how Susan E. was going to wrap it up because we were running out of pages and there was so much still left to do. But like something happens in the middle that I predicted was going to come back in at the end, and Raph, however you want to say it, his storyline in this was amazing. Penryn is once again one of my favourite female protagonists. She is just amazing the whole way through. Her family is very interesting. If you want a really interesting, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, fantasy paranormal vibe, pick up this series. It's so good. It's one of my favourite trilogies of all time. I have 4 trilogies that I regard higher than anything else. This is one of them. And it was just absolutely amazing. So, needless to say, I got 5 stars. Yeah, so 5 stars for this one. I don't think I said, but I gave this 5 stars too. So this month, while I only read 6 books, I read 6 books and 2 comic book bind-ups, but that's enough for me. Goodbye.